"I can't breathe," shouted the elderly mother of the millionaire man, and what followed stunned everyone. Victoria, claiming Evelyn was not following instructions, led her out to the farm's external wash tank used for cleaning tools. Under the pretense of washing her hair, she forced the frail woman's head into the icy water, while Evelyn thrashed helplessly for air as Martha, the family's loyal cook, sprinted toward them in horror. At that very moment, Michael returned, unexpectedly, and caught sight of the scene from afar, his heart dropping as he raced to rescue his mother. Terrified and shaken, Evelyn agreed to the polished explanation Victoria fabricated on the spot, despite knowing it was all a lie. The mountains stood like silent sentinels around Harper Farm, their peaks dusted with early October snow. Evelyn Harper pressed her palm against the cold window of the truck, watching the landscape roll past, endless pines, weathered fences, and finally, the property itself. The farmhouse rose from the valley floor, its white clapboards brightened by the afternoon sun, while behind it the old barn leaned slightly to one side, as if carrying the weight of too many years. "Mom, you'll love it here." Michael's voice held that practiced cheerfulness he'd perfected over years of business calls. "The air is cleaner, you'll have space, and we'll all be together." Evelyn nodded, though something in her chest tightened. Together. The word felt hollow after 3 months in the Oregon hospital, after the fall that had stolen her confidence and left her walking with a cane. She'd been a teacher for 42 years, sharp, independent, capable. Now she felt like an old textbook being moved to storage. The truck stopped. Michael helped her down with careful hands, the kind that made her feel fragile, breakable. The front door opened before they reached it. Victoria Harper stood framed in the doorway, her posture impeccable. Blonde hair pulled back in a style that suggested effortless perfection. She wore cream-colored slacks and a cashmere sweater, her smile wide and rehearsed. "Evelyn, welcome home." Victoria's embrace was brief, her perfume sharp, something floral and expensive that seemed to claim ownership of the air itself. "Thank you, dear." Evelyn's response came automatically, the way responses do when you've learned to smooth over discomfort. Inside, the farmhouse was immaculate, not warm, immaculate. Every surface gleamed. The furniture looked arranged rather than lived in. A vase of white lilies sat on the entry table, their fragrance too heavy, almost suffocating. "Lilies at dance class," Victoria said, leading them through the hallway. "I've prepared the downstairs guest room for you. The stairs might be difficult with your condition." The word landed like a judgment. Condition, not recovery, not healing. Condition. "That's thoughtful," Evelyn said, though she'd climbed stairs perfectly well during physical therapy. The room was at the back of the house, away from the main living areas. Clean, sparse, with a single window overlooking the barn, a bed with white linens, a nightstand, a lamp. It looked like a room waiting to be occupied, not a room meant for living. "I'll let you rest," Victoria said. "Dinner is at 6. Sharp. The door closed with a soft click that somehow felt final. Evelyn sat on the bed, her cane resting against her knee. Through the window, she could see the barn. Its red paint faded to rust, boards missing from the upper loft, the whole structure tilted like something exhausted. She understood the feeling. That evening, Michael carried her suitcase down from the truck while Victoria set the table with mechanical precision. Each fork aligned perfectly. Each glass filled to the same level. Lily arrived home in a flurry of pink tulle and excited chatter, launching herself at Evelyn with the unfiltered affection only a 6-year-old could manage. "Grandma, I learned a pirouette. Want to see?" "Of course, sweetheart." Lily spun in the hallway, her small body full of joy, until Victoria's voice cut through. "Lily, hands washed. Now." The girl's smile faltered. She walked toward the bathroom with careful, quiet steps. Dinner was roast chicken, green beans, mashed potatoes, all perfectly prepared, all somehow tasteless. Victoria dominated the conversation, discussing Lily's activities, the farmhouse renovations, the local charity board she'd just joined. Michael nodded along, occasionally glancing at his phone. Evelyn ate slowly, aware of Victoria's eyes tracking her movements, the way she cut her meat, the way she reached for her water glass. "You're using your left hand," Victoria observed. "Did the fall affect your coordination?" "Just habit," Evelyn said quietly. Victoria's expression suggested doubt. "We should establish a routine for you. Structure helps with adjustment." After dinner, Michael announced he had calls to make. Victoria took Lily upstairs for bath time. Evelyn found herself alone in the living room, surrounded by photographs of Michael's family, wedding pictures, Lily's milestones, vacation snapshots, all arranged in chronological perfection. Not one photograph included her. Through the window, the barn stood dark against the twilight sky, its broken boards casting jagged shadows. Evelyn touched the glass, and for just a moment she saw her own reflection, pale, uncertain, fading into the darkness behind it. The house settled around her with creaks and sighs. Somewhere upstairs, Victoria's footsteps moved across the floor with measured precision. Evelyn closed her eyes and thought of her garden in Oregon, the roses she'd planted, the morning light through her kitchen window, the life she'd left behind. This was supposed to be a new beginning. It felt like an ending. The first week passed in a fog of adjustment. Evelyn woke each morning to silence, the kind that pressed against her ears, making her aware of her own breathing. In Oregon, birds had sung outside her window. Here, the mountains swallowed sound. Victoria had established what she called house rhythms. Breakfast at 7:30, lunch at noon precisely, dinner at 6. Between these anchors, Evelyn was expected to remain in her room, or, if she wished, sit in the sunroom at the back of the house, a space with large windows and uncomfortable chairs that seemed designed to discourage lingering. "It's important not to disrupt Lily's routine," Victoria had explained on the third day, her tone pleasant but firm. "Children need consistency." Evelyn had been a teacher. She understood children. But she nodded anyway. Michael left for Chicago on Tuesday morning, kissing Lily goodbye and squeezing Evelyn's shoulder with distracted affection. "I'll be back Friday," he said. "You're in good hands." The truck disappeared down the long driveway, and something in the house shifted. Victoria's smile, which had been constant in Michael's presence, faded like a light switched off. That afternoon, Evelyn attempted to help with lunch. She'd always cooked, found comfort in the ritual of preparation, the alchemy of simple ingredients becoming something nourishing. She stood at the counter washing lettuce when Victoria entered. "What are you doing?" "I thought I'd make a salad." Victoria's hand reached past her, turning off the water. "Martha handles the kitchen. That's her job. I was just trying to..." "To what? Help?" Victoria's laugh was soft, almost kind, which made it worse. "Evelyn, you can barely manage your own medications. The kitchen has sharp knives, hot surfaces. I can't have you hurting yourself." The words were wrapped in concern, but they cut nonetheless. Evelyn stepped back, her cane catching slightly on the tile. "Of course. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Just stay where you're safe." Martha appeared in the doorway, a solid woman in her 50s with kind eyes and flour on her apron. She'd worked for the Harpers for 12 years, had watched Michael grow from an ambitious young man into an absent one. She glanced between Victoria and Evelyn, reading the tension. "I could use help snapping the green beans," Martha said carefully. "If you're feeling up to it, Mrs. Harper." Victoria's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Martha, I think..." "It's just beans," Martha said, her voice gentle but immovable. "Sitting work." For a moment, something dangerous flickered in Victoria's eyes. Then the smile returned. "Of course. How lovely." She left the kitchen, her heels clicking against the hardwood with that distinctive rhythm Evelyn had learned to recognize, the sound of controlled anger. Martha set a bowl of green beans on the table and sat beside Evelyn. They worked in comfortable silence, the snap of each bean a small rebellion. "She means well?" Evelyn whispered, though she didn't believe it. Martha's hands paused. "Does she?" The question hung between them. Before Evelyn could respond, Lily burst through the back door, cheeks flushed from playing outside. "Grandma, I found a bird's nest. Come see." Evelyn stood, grateful for the interruption. She followed Lily into the yard, where the girl pointed excitedly at a small nest tucked in the low branches of an aspen tree. 3 blue eggs rested inside, perfect and fragile. "They're beautiful," Evelyn said. "Mom says birds are messy. She doesn't like them near the house." Lily's voice dropped to a whisper. "But I think they're magic." Evelyn touched the girl's hair softly. "They are magic. They're promises. Promises. That something new is always waiting to be born." They stood together in the autumn sunlight, and for a moment Evelyn felt almost like herself again. Then Victoria's voice called from the porch. "Lily, inside. Now." The girl's body went rigid. She looked up at Evelyn with something like apology, then ran toward the house with obedient speed. Evelyn followed slowly, her cane sinking slightly into the soft earth. At the porch steps, Victoria waited, arms crossed. "She needs to wash up before dinner. You should know better than to let her get dirty." "We were just looking at—" "I don't need explanations, Evelyn. I need cooperation." The door closed between them. Through the window, Evelyn watched Victoria lean down to Lily, speaking words she couldn't hear. The girl nodded, her earlier joy extinguished. That night, alone in her room, Evelyn found her pill organizer had been moved. It took her 20 minutes to locate it, tucked behind books on a shelf she couldn't easily reach. When she finally retrieved it, her hands were shaking. Outside, the barn stood dark and silent, its broken frame barely visible against the star-scattered sky. By the end of the second week, Evelyn had learned to move through the house like a ghost, silent, unobtrusive, barely there. She kept to her room during the hours Victoria deemed family time, emerged only when summoned, and spoke in careful sentences that couldn't be misinterpreted. The pill organizer disappeared twice more. Once, she found it in the linen closet. Another time, tucked behind the sugar canister in the kitchen. Each relocation seemed accidental enough to dismiss, deliberate enough to unsettle. "You must have moved it and forgotten," Victoria said with sympathetic concern. "It's normal at your age. Memory issues." Evelyn hadn't moved it. She knew she hadn't. But doubt was a seed easily planted, and hers had already begun to sprout. Michael called every evening at 8, his voice tired and distant. "How's everything going?" "Fine," Evelyn would say, because Victoria stood nearby, arranging flowers or folding laundry, her presence a reminder of what could and couldn't be said. "Mom seems to be adjusting well," Victoria would add, taking the phone. "Though we did have a small incident with her medications. Nothing serious, just confusion." Michael's relief traveled through the speaker. "Thanks for taking care of her, Vic. I know it's not easy." After he hung up, the house would settle back into its peculiar silence. On Thursday afternoon, Victoria decided Evelyn's hair needed attention. "You can't let yourself go," she said, leading her to the mudroom where a deep utility sink stood against the wall, the kind used for washing garden tools and farm equipment. "Appearance matters." The water ran cold. Victoria's hands were firm as she guided Evelyn's head toward the basin, pressing down with gradual insistence. "Just relax," Victoria murmured. But the angle was wrong. The edge of the sink cut into Evelyn's neck. Water rushed over her face, filling her nose and mouth. She tried to pull back, but Victoria's grip tightened. "Hold still, almost done." Panic seized Evelyn's chest. She couldn't breathe. Water everywhere. Her hands grasped at the sink edge, at Victoria's wrists, but her strength was nothing against the younger woman's determination. "Mrs. Victoria!" Martha's voice cut through the sound of rushing water. "The oven timer! I need you!" The pressure released. Evelyn gasped, choking, water streaming down her face and soaking her collar. Victoria stepped back smoothly, grabbing a towel. "There. All clean." She patted Evelyn's head with mechanical efficiency. "You really should learn to relax. You made it much harder than it needed to be." Martha appeared in the doorway, her face pale. Her eyes moved from Victoria to Evelyn, taking in the older woman's trembling hands, her gasping breaths, the terror that hadn't yet left her expression. "I'll help her dry off," Martha said quietly. Victoria smiled. "How kind. I have calls to make anyway." She left, and the room seemed to exhale. Martha wrapped a dry towel around Evelyn's shoulders, her touch gentle. "Are you all right?" Evelyn wanted to speak, to explain what had just happened, but the words tangled in her throat. Was it abuse, or was she being dramatic? Victoria had been washing her hair. That was all. Just washing her hair. "I'm fine," she whispered. Martha's expression said she didn't believe it, but she helped Evelyn back to her room without pressing further. That evening, Michael returned early, a surprise visit. He found Evelyn in the sunroom, staring out at the mountains with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders despite the warm house. "Mom? You okay?" She turned, and he saw something in her face that made him step closer. "What happened?" Victoria appeared before Evelyn could answer, her smile bright and immediate. "Michael, you're home early. We were just about to start dinner." Mom looks upset. "Oh, we had a little incident earlier. I was helping her wash her hair, and I think the water was too cold. She got startled." Victoria touched Evelyn's shoulder with practiced tenderness. "I felt terrible about it. Didn't I apologize, Evelyn?" All eyes turned to her. Michael's concerned. Victoria's expectant. The moment stretched like a rubber band pulled too tight. "Yes," Evelyn heard herself say. "It was just cold water. I'm fine." Michael's relief was immediate. "You scared me. Maybe we should get a handheld shower head installed in your bathroom. Make things easier." "That's a wonderful idea," Victoria said. "I'll order one tomorrow." That night, Evelyn lay awake, listening to the house settle around her. Down the hall, she could hear Michael and Victoria's voices, his deep and tired, hers light and musical. They laughed about something. A normal married couple in their normal home. She touched her throat where the sink edge had pressed. A faint bruise was forming. Through her window, the barn stood sentinel in the moonlight, its broken boards casting shadows that looked like prison bars. Evelyn closed her eyes and tried to remember who she used to be. The woman who'd commanded classrooms, who'd raised a son alone after her husband died, who'd never been afraid of her own voice. That woman felt very far away now. Michael left again on Monday. Another conference, this time in Seattle. 3 days, maybe 4. He kissed Lily, hugged Evelyn, and reminded Victoria to call if anything came up. "We'll be fine," Victoria assured him, waving from the porch as his truck disappeared down the mountain road. The shift happened before the dust settled. "Lily, schoolwork. Now!" Victoria's voice had lost its musical quality. "Evelyn, I need to speak with you." They stood in the kitchen. Martha had gone to town for groceries, and the house felt emptier for her absence. Victoria leaned against the counter, her arms crossed, studying Evelyn the way one might study a stain that refused to come out. "This arrangement isn't working." Evelyn's grip tightened on her cane. "I'm trying to—" "You're trying to what? Exist? Congratulations. That's the bare minimum." Victoria's smile was thin and sharp. "You wander around looking lost. You forget things constantly. You make Lily uncomfortable with all your hovering. And Michael, he worries about you every single day instead of focusing on his career." "I didn't ask to come here." "No, you just fell and became helpless. Very convenient." The words struck like slaps. Evelyn felt her face flush, anger and shame mixing into something toxic. "I raised Michael alone. I worked. I was independent. I never wanted to be a burden. And yet here you are. Burdening." Victoria pushed off the counter, moving closer. "Let me be clear. This is my home. My family. You're here because Michael's guilt won't let him put you in a facility where you belong. So if you want to stay, you'll follow my rules without complaint. You'll stop acting like you have rights here. And you'll remember that one word from me. And Michael will believe whatever I tell him." The threat hung in the air between them, undeniable. "Do we understand each other?" Evelyn's voice came out barely above a whisper. "Yes." Good. Now go to your room. I'll bring you lunch when I'm ready. Evelyn walked down the hallway on legs that felt disconnected from her body. Her room, the sparse cold room at the back of the house, had become more than just a bedroom. It was a cell, a place of containment. She sat on the bed and stared at her hands. 73 years old, a lifetime of teaching, of shaping young minds, of being needed and respected and whole. Reduced to this, a woman afraid in her own son's home. The door remained open, but she didn't dare leave. Lunch came at 2 o'clock. A sandwich, no plate beneath it, set on the nightstand like food for a dog. Victoria didn't speak, just placed it down and left. Evelyn couldn't eat it. That evening, Lily appeared in the doorway, her small face worried. "Grandma, Mom says you're not feeling well." "I'm all right, sweetheart." "She says I shouldn't bother you. That old people need lots of rest." Lily twisted her hands together. "Are you old?" The question, so innocent, so honest, made Evelyn's throat tighten. "Yes, baby. I suppose I am. I don't want you to be old. Old means you might go away. Come here." Lily climbed onto the bed, curling against Evelyn's side the way she had when she was smaller. They sat together in the fading light, and Evelyn stroked the girl's hair, memorizing the weight of her, the warmth, the trust. "Lily!" Victoria's voice carried from down the hall. "Where are you?" The girl tensed immediately. "I have to go." "It's okay. Go on." Lily slipped away and Evelyn was alone again. Night fell. The house grew dark. No one came to check on her. She found her evening medication, this time hidden in the pocket of a jacket she hadn't worn in weeks. How it got there, she couldn't fathom. But she took the pills, swallowing them dry because walking to the kitchen for water felt like a risk she couldn't take. Outside her window, the barn was barely visible against the starless sky. She thought about its history, how it had stood for generations, sheltering animals and harvests, serving its purpose until time and neglect had rendered it useless. A structure could only lean so far before it collapsed entirely. She wondered how much farther she could lean. In the morning, Martha returned from town with groceries and something else. A tension in her shoulders, a determination in her eyes. She found Evelyn in the sunroom, staring at nothing. "Mrs. Harper," Martha said quietly, sitting beside her. "How long has this been going on?" Evelyn looked at her, and for the first time in weeks, tears came. Not dramatic sobs, just silent tears tracking down her weathered cheeks. Martha took her hand. "I'm calling Michael. She'll know, I don't care what she'll do." Martha's voice was firm. "This stops today." But before Martha could reach for her phone, Victoria appeared in the doorway, her expression pleasant and poisonous. "Martha, Evelyn, having a nice chat?" Martha's phone call never happened. Victoria had been listening, had perhaps been listening to everything all along. That afternoon, she suggested Martha take a few days off. "You look exhausted," Victoria said with manufactured concern. "I insist. Paid leave. Consider it a gift." Martha's jaw tightened. "I'm fine, Mrs. Victoria. I'd prefer to stay." "I'm not asking, Martha. I'm telling you. 3 days, starting now." The older woman looked at Evelyn, her eyes communicating what her mouth couldn't. Then she gathered her purse and left, the sound of her truck fading into the mountain silence. Evelyn felt the last thread of safety snap. That night, Victoria prepared dinner with mechanical precision. Lily sat at the table, unusually quiet, pushing peas around her plate. Evelyn barely touched her food, each bite requiring concentration she couldn't muster. "You're not eating?" Victoria observed. "Are you feeling unwell?" "Just tired." Maybe your medications need adjusting. I'll mention it to Michael." The threat was clear. More medications, more confusion, more reasons to doubt her own mind. After dinner, Victoria suggested Evelyn might be more comfortable taking her meals in her room for the next few days. "To reduce stress," she explained. "All the social interaction seems to exhaust you." Evelyn understood. Isolation was the next phase. She spent the following day in her room, listening to the sounds of the house beyond her door, Lily's footsteps, Victoria's phone conversations, the ordinary rhythms of a life she was no longer part of. Meals appeared on her nightstand at irregular intervals, the unpredictability itself a form of control. On the second day, she heard a new voice. "Mrs. Harper? I'm Rachel Adams. Michael hired me to help around the house." The girl who appeared in her doorway was young, mid-20s, with dark hair pulled into a practical ponytail and eyes that held something watchful, something knowing. She wore jeans and a simple sweater, carrying a tray with lunch. "I thought you might like some company while you eat," Rachel said, setting the tray on the nightstand. "If that's okay." Evelyn studied her. Victoria wouldn't have allowed this unless she'd approved it, which meant Rachel was either an ally or another tool of control. "That's kind of you." Rachel sat in the chair by the window, her posture relaxed but attentive. "Michael mentioned you were a teacher. What did you teach?" "English literature. High school. I studied education. Graduated last year." Rachel's voice was easy, conversational. "Working while I wait for job openings. The market's tough right now." They talked about books, about teaching, about nothing important. But Rachel's eyes kept moving, to the sparse room, to the nightstand where Evelyn's pill organizer sat, to the faint bruise still visible on Evelyn's throat. "That's a nasty bruise," Rachel said carefully. "I'm clumsy. Old age. Looks more like pressure than impact." The observation hung between them. Evelyn's hands trembled slightly. Rachel noticed, but didn't comment. Over the next week, Rachel became a constant presence. She cleaned, helped with Lily's schoolwork, prepared meals, and somehow always found reasons to check on Evelyn. Victoria seemed satisfied with the arrangement, perhaps seeing Rachel as too young, too inexperienced to be a threat. But Rachel was neither. She'd grown up in foster care, moving between 7 homes before aging out of the system at 18. She'd learned to read houses the way others read books, understanding the silences, the tensions, the unspoken violence that thrived in private spaces. Harper Farm spoke to her in a language she knew too well. One afternoon, while Victoria was on a phone call in her office, Rachel helped Evelyn to the sunroom. They sat together, watching clouds move across the mountain peaks. "My last foster home," Rachel said quietly. "The mother was perfect in public. Everyone loved her. But when the social workers left, she'd lock the pantry, move our things, tell us we were remembering wrong when we complained." She paused. "Small cruelties, the kind that don't leave obvious marks." Evelyn's breath caught. "I'm not saying that's what's happening here," Rachel continued, her voice steady. "But if it were, if someone was experiencing that, they should know they're not crazy. That gaslighting is real, that it's not their fault." Tears gathered in Evelyn's eyes. "I don't know what to do. You don't have to do anything right now. Just know you're not alone." Victoria's heels clicked in the hallway. Rachel stood smoothly, her expression shifting to neutral pleasantness. "Let me know if you need anything else, Mrs. Harper." She left, and Evelyn sat in the sunlight, feeling something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Small, fragile, but undeniably there. Outside, the barn cast its crooked shadow across the yard, and for the first time, Evelyn wondered if broken things could be made whole again. Rachel moved through Harper Farm with quiet purpose, observing everything. She noted how Lily flinched when Victoria's voice sharpened. She saw how Evelyn's medication bottles appeared and disappeared from their designated spot. She watched Victoria's performance, the way she softened when Michael called, hardened when he didn't. On her day off, Rachel drove into town. The village was small, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone's business. She found the diner where former Harper Farm employees apparently gathered, according to gossip she'd overheard at the general store. A waitress named Carol had worked at the farm 2 years prior. She sat across from Rachel in a corner booth, stirring her coffee with nervous energy. "I lasted 4 months," Carol said. "Longest anyone had stayed in years." "What happened?" "Mrs. Victoria happened." Carol's voice dropped. She'd give me tasks, then insist I'd done them wrong even when I'd followed her instructions exactly. She'd accuse me of stealing, small things, a dish towel, a book, then find them later in places I'd never been. She made me doubt everything. Did you tell Michael? He was never there, and when he was, she was different, sweet, helpful, perfect. Carol shook her head. I wasn't the first. There was Denise before me and Maria before her. We all left for the same reason. That woman is poison. Rachel thanked her and drove back to the farm with a knot in her stomach. She'd suspected, but confirmation was different, heavier. That evening, she found Evelyn in her room, staring at a book without reading it. Rachel closed the door softly behind her. I went to town today, she said. Talked to some people who used to work here. Evelyn's hands tightened on the book. They told me things. About Victoria. About a pattern. Rachel sat on the edge of the bed. You're not imagining this, Mrs. Harper. It's real. She's done this before. But Michael doesn't see it. Because she's careful. She knows exactly how to play him. Rachel pulled something from her pocket, a small notebook. I think we should document things. Dates, incidents, anything that happens. Not to confront her, not yet. Just to have a record. For when the time is right. Evelyn looked at the notebook like it was a lifeline thrown across dark water. You believe me? I do. For the first time in months, Evelyn felt the weight on her chest lighten slightly. They began keeping the notebook hidden beneath the mattress, a chronicle of small abuses. Pills moved, meals withheld, bruises, comments designed to erode confidence. But Victoria was watching too. One afternoon, she called Rachel into the kitchen. Her smile was pleasant, but her eyes were cold. You've been spending a lot of time with Evelyn. She gets lonely. I thought company would help. How thoughtful. Victoria arranged lemons in a bowl with precise movements. But I'm concerned you might be encouraging her. Confusion. She has a tendency to misremember things, to create narratives that aren't accurate. I haven't noticed that. Of course you haven't. You're young, inexperienced. Victoria's voice remained sweet. But I've been caring for elderly relatives for years. They need structure, not indulgence. Perhaps it would be better if you focused on household tasks and left Evelyn's care to me. It wasn't a suggestion. I understand, Rachel said carefully. But she didn't stop visiting Evelyn. She just became more careful. Meanwhile, Michael remained gone. Another business trip, this one to New York. He called every evening, and Victoria's performance was flawless. She spoke of Evelyn's good days and bad days, of Rachel's wonderful help, of Lily's progress in school. She painted a picture of domestic harmony. Your mother seems more confused lately, Victoria mentioned during one call, her voice concerned. I'm wondering if we should have her evaluated, maybe adjust her living situation. Rachel, passing through the hallway, heard this and felt ice in her veins. Living situation. That meant a facility. Removal. The final isolation. That night, she found Evelyn sitting by her window, looking at the barn. She's going to send me away, Evelyn whispered. Not if I can help it. You're one person, Rachel. What can you do against her? Rachel thought of all the homes she'd been moved through, all the times she'd been powerless, all the moments she'd sworn that if she ever had the chance to help someone else, she would. I can tell the truth, she said, and I can make sure someone listens. Outside, clouds gathered over the mountains, promising rain. The barn's shadow stretched across the yard like a pointing finger, indicating something just out of reach. Inside the house, Victoria began making phone calls, to facilities, to doctors, to lawyers. Her voice through the office door was calm and measured, laying groundwork. Rachel stood in the hallway, listening, and began making plans of her own. The rain came that weekend, steady and cold. Michael returned from New York exhausted, carrying his briefcase like a burden. He kissed Lily, embraced Victoria, and gave Evelyn a distracted hug that felt more like obligation than affection. How was your trip? Victoria asked, already pouring him whiskey. Productive. tiring. He sank into his chair, rubbing his temples. I'll be home for a while now. Need to catch up on things here. Rachel watched from the kitchen doorway as Victoria's expression flickered, just for a moment, with something like irritation, but it smoothed immediately into wifely concern. You work too hard, darling. Let me take care of everything. And she did. For 3 days, Victoria was the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the attentive daughter-in-law. She brought Michael coffee without being asked. She organized Lily's schedule with cheerful efficiency. She checked on Evelyn with theatrical tenderness. Your mother had a good day today, she'd report, though she did seem confused about her medication schedule again. Michael, tired and trusting, absorbed it all without question. But on the 4th night, Victoria left. My sister needs me in Denver, she announced at dinner. Just for a few days. A small emergency, Michael frowned. What kind of emergency? Nothing serious, just support. Victoria's hand covered his. Rachel can manage things here. You'll be fine. She packed efficiently and left the next morning, hugging Lily with careful affection and reminding Michael to call if anything came up. The house exhaled. Rachel felt it immediately. The way tension drained from the walls. How Lily's laughter came easier. How even the light through the windows seemed less filtered. But she remained cautious. Victoria's absence didn't mean Victoria's influence had vanished. That evening, as Rachel was cleaning up from dinner, the house phone rang. Michael answered it in his office. Through the thin walls, Rachel could hear his side of the conversation. Yes, this is Michael Harper. What? No, Lily's fine. What do you mean she called? Rachel's stomach dropped. She moved closer to the office door, listening. She said what? That Lily told her? No, that's not... Victoria, what's going on? Silence as he listened. I don't understand. Why would you call your sister pretending to be Lily? What kind of test is that? Rachel's breath caught. Victoria hadn't gone to Denver. She'd staged the whole thing, created a crisis, left, and was now manipulating the situation from a distance. Michael's voice rose. That's not normal behavior, Vic. I don't know what that is, but it's concerning. More silence. Then his voice softened, doubt creeping in. Okay, I hear you. We can talk when you get back. He hung up, and Rachel quickly moved away from the door. She found Lily in her room, drawing with colored pencils. The girl looked up with bright eyes. Rachel, want to see my picture? Of course. The drawing showed figures, a tall woman, a small girl, and empty spaces between them. No other people. Just blank paper where family should be. Where's your dad? Your grandma? Lily's crayon paused. Mom says they're busy, that it's just us most of the time. Do you talk to your mom when she's not here? Sometimes. She calls and asks me questions. About Dad, about Grandma, about if anyone's being mean to me. Lily's voice dropped. She gets upset if I say the wrong things. Rachel's heart pounded. Victoria was coaching Lily, even from a distance, planting seeds of suspicion and control. That night, after Lily was asleep, Michael found Rachel in the kitchen. He looked exhausted, older than his 43 years. Can I ask you something? Of course. My mother, how does she seem to you? Honestly. Rachel chose her words carefully. Fragile, uncertain, like she's afraid of taking up space. That's not who she was. She was this force, confident, capable. When did she become so? He trailed off, searching for the word. Small? Rachel offered. Yeah, small. He leaned against the counter. Victoria says it's age, decline, that it's natural. Is it? Michael looked at her, really looked, and for the first time, Rachel saw doubt in his eyes. Not certainty, but the beginning of a question. I don't know anymore, he admitted. Outside, the rain intensified, drumming against the roof. In her room, Evelyn lay awake listening to the storm. The notebook beneath her mattress had grown thick with entries, a record of invisible wounds. The barn stood dark in the downpour, its broken boards streaming with water, still standing despite everything trying to tear it down. Inside the house, three people harbored their separate truths, waiting for the moment when silence would no longer be possible. That moment was coming. Victoria returned on a gray Tuesday afternoon, her entrance perfectly timed. She swept into the house with bags from Denver boutiques, gifts for Lily, and a brightness that felt manufactured. Michael met her in the foyer, and Rachel watched from the stairs as they stood in careful distance from each other. "We need to talk," Michael said. "Of course, darling. Let me just settle in." But Michael's expression held firm. "Now, Victoria." They went into his office and closed the door. Rachel busied herself with laundry, folding sheets within earshot. Their voices rose and fell. Victoria's melodic explanations, Michael's questions that sounded more tired than angry. "I was worried about Lily," Victoria insisted. "Is it wrong to check on my daughter? By pretending to be her? By calling your sister and fabricating an emergency? I wanted to see if she'd tell me the truth. If something was happening here that I didn't know about. What could possibly be happening that would require that kind of deception?" A pause. Then Victoria's voice, softer, more vulnerable. "I worry about your mother's influence on Lily. The confusion, Michael. The way she forgets things, says things that aren't true. I didn't want that affecting our daughter." Rachel's hand stilled on the sheets. "My mother isn't dangerous," Michael said, but his voice had lost some of its certainty. "Not dangerous, just unreliable. And Rachel, she's young, inexperienced. She encourages Evelyn instead of redirecting her. I came back to find them huddled together, whispering. It felt secretive, wrong." The conversation continued, Victoria skillfully redirecting every accusation, turning herself into the concerned wife, the protective mother, the misunderstood caretaker. By the time the office door opened, Michael looked defeated. That evening at dinner, the tension was palpable. Victoria served pot roast with mechanical precision. Lily ate in silence, sensing the adult undercurrents. Evelyn barely touched her food, her hands trembling slightly whenever Victoria moved. "Rachel," Victoria said pleasantly, "I've been thinking. Perhaps it would be better if you focused on housework and Lily's activities. I'll handle Mother Harper's care personally from now on." Rachel's fork paused midair. "I don't mind helping Mrs. Harper. I know you don't, but consistency is important for elderly care. Too many caregivers can be confusing." Michael nodded slowly, accepting the logic. "That makes sense." "No." The word came from Evelyn, quiet but firm. All eyes turned to her. She set down her fork with a trembling hand. "I prefer Rachel's help." Victoria's smile tightened. "Evelyn, dear, you don't know what's best for you right now. That's why we're here. To help you. I know I don't want to be isolated." The word hung in the air. Isolated. It was the first time Evelyn had named what was happening. Michael leaned forward. "Mom, no one's isolating you." "Aren't they?" Evelyn's voice gained strength. "I eat alone. I stay in my room. I'm told when I can and cannot interact with my own granddaughter. I'm watched constantly, criticized constantly, made to feel like I'm losing my mind." "Because you are confused," Victoria interjected smoothly. "This is exactly what I was worried about, the paranoia, the accusations. It's textbook cognitive decline. I'm not confused about how I feel. I'm not confused about being afraid." Michael's face paled. "Afraid? Of what?" Evelyn looked at Victoria, then back at her son. The moment stretched, fragile and crucial. But years of being gaslit, of having her reality denied, made the words stick in her throat. "Forget it," she whispered. "I'm just tired." "See?" Victoria said gently. "These episodes pass. We just need to be patient with her." After dinner, Rachel found Evelyn in her room, sitting on the bed with her head in her hands. "You almost told him," Rachel said. "Almost isn't enough." "It's a start." Rachel sat beside her. "He's beginning to notice things." The phone call incident unsettled him. "He's asking questions. Questions aren't enough against her. She'll just provide answers that make me look worse." Evelyn's voice broke. "Maybe I should just go to a facility. Maybe that would be easier for everyone." It would be easier for Victoria. Is that what you want? Before Evelyn could answer, they heard Lily crying down the hall. Both women rushed out to find the girl standing outside her parents' closed bedroom door, tears streaming down her face. "They're fighting," Lily sobbed. "I heard Daddy say he doesn't know what's real anymore." Rachel knelt beside her. "It's okay, sweetheart. Sometimes adults need to work through hard things. Is it because of Grandma? Mom says Grandma makes everything difficult." Evelyn's face crumpled. Inside the bedroom, Michael's voice rose. "I'm not saying you're lying. I'm saying something feels wrong, and I can't put my finger on what. Because there's nothing wrong, Michael, except your mother's declining mental state and your refusal to see it." The following days passed in suffocating quiet. Victoria had won the argument, or appeared to have won it, and the house settled back into its oppressive routine. Rachel was reassigned to cleaning and organizing tasks that kept her away from Evelyn. When their paths crossed, Victoria was always nearby, watching, but Rachel was resourceful. She began using her grocery runs as opportunities. Each trip to town, she gathered more information. Medical records she requested on Evelyn's behalf, statements from former employees willing to put their experiences in writing, research on elder abuse and psychological manipulation. She kept everything in her car, in a locked box beneath the spare tire. Michael, meanwhile, had become quieter. He spent long hours in his office, emerged for meals with distracted conversation, and watched his mother with an expression Rachel couldn't quite read. Concern? Suspicion? Guilt? One afternoon, while Victoria took Lily to dance class, Michael knocked on Evelyn's door. "Mom, can we talk?" Evelyn set down her book, her body tensing automatically. "Of course." He sat in the chair by the window, the same chair Rachel usually occupied. For a long moment, he just looked at his mother, really looked at her in a way he hadn't since she'd arrived. "You seem different," he said finally. "I'm older." "No, not older. Smaller. Like you're trying not to be seen." He leaned forward. "What happened to you? The woman who raised me, she took up space. She had opinions. She didn't apologize for existing." Evelyn's throat tightened. "People change. That fast? In just a few months?" She wanted to tell him everything. The cruelty, the manipulation, the fear that had become her constant companion. But Victoria's words echoed in her mind. "One word from me, and Michael will believe whatever I tell him. I'm just adjusting," she said quietly. Michael's jaw tightened with frustration. "Everyone keeps saying that. Adjusting, declining, confused. But what if you're not confused? What if something else is happening?" Hope flared in Evelyn's chest. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. That's the problem. I travel constantly. I come home to reports from Victoria about incidents I never witness. And you confirm everything she says, even when I can see in your eyes that something's wrong. Michael, are you afraid of her?" The question landed like a stone in still water. Ripples spread outward, disturbing everything. "That's a terrible thing to ask," Evelyn whispered. "It's a necessary thing to ask." He reached for her hand. "Mom, I need you to be honest with me." "Completely honest. Is Victoria hurting you?" The door opened before Evelyn could answer. Victoria stood in the doorway, Lily beside her, still in her dance clothes. Her expression was pleasant, but her eyes were sharp. "We're home early. Lily wasn't feeling well." She assessed the scene. Michael holding his mother's hand, the tension in the room. "Am I interrupting something?" "Just talking," Michael said, releasing Evelyn's hand. "How nice." Victoria's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Lily needs a snack. Michael, could you help her while I put away the groceries?" It wasn't a request. Michael stood, gave his mother one last searching look, and left with Lily. Victoria remained in the doorway. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing." "Good." Victoria stepped inside, closing the door behind her. "Because if you did tell him something, anything, I have months of documentation about your mental decline, pills you've forgotten to take, conversations you've misremembered, incidents you've caused through confusion, every doctor I'd need to convince a judge that you're a danger to yourself. I haven't done anything wrong." Facts don't matter, Evelyn. Narratives do. And I've been building mine very carefully. Victoria moved closer. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to stop filling Michael's head with doubts. You're going to be the confused, declining, elderly woman everyone expects you to be. And when the time comes for you to move to a memory care facility, you're going to go quietly. And if I don't, Victoria's smile was ice. Then I'll make sure you leave in an ambulance, a fall maybe, or a medication mix-up. Tragic accidents happen to confused elderly people all the time. She left, and Evelyn sat frozen, Victoria's threat ringing in her ears. That night, Rachel slipped into Evelyn's room after everyone was asleep. She found the older woman sitting in the dark, staring at nothing. "She threatened me," Evelyn whispered. "Said she'd hurt me if I told Michael the truth." Rachel's hands clenched into fists. "We need to tell him anyway. He'll never believe me over her. You heard him. He doesn't know what's real. Then we make it real. We show him evidence he can't deny." Rachel pulled out her phone. "I've been documenting everything. Photos of bruises, recordings of her tone when you're alone, statements from former employees, medical records showing your cognitive function is actually normal. We have enough." "It won't be enough. She's too good at this." "Maybe, but doing nothing guarantees she wins." Rachel knelt beside Evelyn's chair. "You taught for 42 years. How many kids did you stand up for when no one else would?" "That was different." "No, it wasn't. You're just on the other side now. And you deserve someone standing up for you." Evelyn looked at this young woman who barely knew her, who had no obligation to help, who was risking her own security for someone else's truth. "Why are you doing this?" "Because no one did it for me when I needed it. And because you remind me that not all adults are failures." Rachel's voice caught. "Please let me help you." Outside, storm clouds gathered again over the mountains. The barn stood crooked in the darkness, held up by sheer stubbornness and the memory of what it used to be. Inside, two women made a plan to speak truths that would either save them or destroy everything. Michael announced his return a day early from his Seattle trip, a surprise he asked Rachel to keep secret. Something in his voice over the phone suggested he was testing something, searching for answers to questions he couldn't yet articulate. Rachel agreed, her heart pounding with possibility. Victoria, believing Michael wouldn't return until Thursday, relaxed her performance. On Wednesday afternoon, she was herself, the version of herself she kept hidden. Sharp-edged, impatient, cruel in small, calculated ways. "You're useless!" she snapped at Evelyn when the older woman moved too slowly down the hallway. "How did you ever function in the real world?" Evelyn, carrying a glass of water, startled at the venom in Victoria's voice. The glass slipped, shattering on the hardwood floor. "Now look what you've done." Victoria's laugh was cold. "Clean it up." "I'll get a broom." "No, with your hands. You made the mess. You fix it." Evelyn knelt slowly, her arthritic knees protesting. She reached for the largest pieces, and a shard sliced her palm. Blood welled, bright red against her pale skin. Victoria watched without moving. "You're bleeding on my floor." From the kitchen doorway, Rachel appeared with a broom and dustpan, her face carefully neutral. "I've got this, Mrs. Victoria. Why don't you take your call? Your phone's been ringing." Victoria's eyes narrowed, but she left. Rachel helped Evelyn to her feet, wrapping the bleeding hand in a clean towel. "She made you clean it with your hands," Rachel whispered, more statement than question. "It was an accident." The glass was. Her response wasn't. Rachel guided Evelyn to the bathroom, cleaned and bandaged the cut with gentle efficiency. "Michael comes home tomorrow. We tell him everything." "Rachel, everything, Mrs. Harper. No more protecting her." No more protecting him from the truth. That evening, Victoria received a phone call that transformed her mood. She emerged from her office glowing, addressing Evelyn at dinner with theatrical kindness. "I've been in touch with a wonderful facility in Boulder," she said brightly. "Silver Meadows, beautiful grounds, excellent staff, specialized memory care. I've scheduled a tour for Friday." Michael's voice would have been on the other end of that call, Rachel knew. Victoria was establishing her narrative, building her case, ensuring that when Michael returned, the path forward would already be paved. Evelyn's hand trembled beneath the table, the bandage stark white against her skin. "I don't need memory care," she said quietly. "Of course you do, dear. The confusion, the accidents, today's incident with the glass, for instance. You could have been seriously hurt. Victoria's concern was perfect, practiced. We want you safe. That's all we want." After dinner, Lily approached Evelyn's room, her small face troubled. "Grandma, are you leaving?" Evelyn pulled the girl onto her lap, something Victoria normally discouraged. "I might be, sweetheart. Because you're sick? Because your mother thinks I am." Lily was quiet for a moment, then whispered, "I don't think you're sick. I think you're sad." The simple observation, delivered with a child's clarity, broke something in Evelyn. Tears came, silent and unexpected. "Why are you sad?" Lily asked. "Because I miss being myself. Who are you?" The question was so profound, so innocent, that Evelyn couldn't answer. Who was she anymore? The confident teacher, the capable mother, or this frightened woman who'd allowed herself to be diminished into nothing? "I'm still figuring that out," she whispered. That night, a storm rolled in, the kind the mountains bred, fierce and cleansing. Rain hammered the roof, wind shook the windows, and lightning illuminated the farm in stark flashes. The power went out around midnight, plunging the house into darkness. Rachel, prepared, had flashlights and candles. She found Evelyn awake, staring at the storm through her window. "Michael will be here by morning," Rachel said. "Storm or no storm." What if telling him makes everything worse? Worse than this? Evelyn touched the bandage on her hand. "She threatened to hurt me. Really hurt me. Make it look like an accident." All the more reason to speak now while we still can. The storm intensified, and they heard Lily crying down the hall. Both women went to her, finding the girl sitting up in bed, terrified of the thunder. "It's okay, baby," Evelyn soothed, sitting beside her. Victoria appeared in the doorway, illuminated by candlelight, her face strange and shadowed. "I'll handle this." "She's frightened," Evelyn said. "Let me." "I said I'll handle it." Victoria's voice cut through the dark. "Both of you, out." Rachel and Evelyn retreated to the hallway, listening to Victoria's harsh whispers through the door. Lily's crying eventually subsiding into scared silence. "That's what control sounds like," Rachel said quietly. "Even her own daughter isn't safe from it." They stood together in the dark hallway, lit only by the candle Rachel held, while the storm raged outside and Victoria's voice continued its low, controlling murmur behind Lily's closed door. By dawn, the storm had passed, leaving the farm washed clean and glistening. Michael's truck appeared at the end of the driveway just as the sun broke through the clouds. He was home, and everything was about to change. Michael arrived to find Martha making breakfast. She'd returned that morning, her 3-day absence having stretched into a week at Victoria's insistence. The house smelled of coffee and bacon, almost normal, almost safe. Victoria greeted him with surprise that seemed genuine. "Darling, I thought you weren't coming until tonight?" "Change of plans." He kissed her cheek, but his eyes were already moving past her, searching. "Where's Mom?" "Still sleeping, I think." The storm kept her up, but Evelyn wasn't sleeping. She was sitting in the sunroom with Rachel, both women holding coffee cups with trembling hands, waiting. Michael found them there. He looked tired, rumpled from travel, but his gaze was sharp as it moved between them. "Rachel, could you give us a moment?" Rachel glanced at Evelyn, who nodded slightly. As she left, she caught Michael's arm. "Talk to her," Rachel said quietly. "Really talk to her. And listen, not to what you expect to hear, but to what she's actually saying." Michael waited until Rachel was gone, then pulled a chair close to his mother. For a long moment he just looked at her. The bandaged hand, the faint bruises on her arms, the way she held herself small and contained. "I need you to tell me the truth," he said. "All of it. No protecting me, no protecting Victoria, no protecting yourself. Just truth." Evelyn's hands tightened around her cup. "You won't believe me." try me. So she did. Slowly at first, then faster as the words tumbled out. Months of accumulated fear and pain finding voice. The moved medications. The cruel comments. The isolation. The utility sink incident where she'd thought she might drown. Victoria's threats. The constant erosion of her reality until she couldn't trust her own memory. She made me feel crazy, Evelyn whispered. Every day, a little more crazy, until I almost believed I was. Michael's face had gone pale, then red, then pale again. His hands clenched and unclenched on his knees. Why didn't you tell me before? I tried. You were never here. And when you were, she was perfect. You believed her version of everything. That I was confused, declining, imagining things. How could I compete with that? You're my mother. You shouldn't have to compete. But I did. And I was losing. Michael stood abruptly, pacing to the window. Outside, the barn stood crooked in the morning light, its shadow stretching across the wet grass. He thought of his father, how the man had built that barn with his own hands, how it had stood strong for decades before neglect had weakened it. I want to talk to Rachel, he said finally, and Martha. I want to hear everything from everyone. For the next hour, Michael sat in his office and listened. Rachel showed him her documentation, photos, recordings, written statements from former employees, medical evaluations proving Evelyn's cognitive function was normal. Martha spoke of the atmosphere that poisoned the house whenever Michael traveled, the fear she'd seen in Evelyn's eyes, the calculated cruelty she'd witnessed. Why didn't you tell me? Michael asked Martha. I tried once. Mrs. Victoria made it clear that questioning her meant losing my job, and I needed this job. Martha's voice broke. I'm ashamed I wasn't braver. We're all ashamed, Michael said quietly. He called his office, canceled his meetings for the week, and asked Martha to take Evelyn and Lily into town. Shopping, lunch, a movie, anything to keep them away for several hours. Is something wrong, Daddy? Lily asked as Martha helped her into her coat. No, sweetheart. I just need to talk to Mommy about some grown-up things. After they left, Michael found Rachel in the kitchen. Stay, he said. I might need a witness. Then he went to find his wife. Victoria was by the pool, reclining on a lounger with a book and a glass of wine, looking like a magazine advertisement for elegant living. She smiled when she saw him. Back so soon? I thought you'd rest after your drive. We need to talk. Something in his tone made her set down the wine. About what? About my mother. About what you've been doing to her. Victoria's expression didn't change, a testament to years of practice. Michael, I know she's been filling your head with stories. The paranoia is getting worse. That's why I scheduled the facility tour. Stop. His voice was hard. I've seen the evidence. Recordings, photos, statements from people who worked here and left because of you. Medical records proving Mom isn't cognitively impaired. I've heard everything, Victoria. Every single thing. For the first time, something flickered in Victoria's eyes. Not remorse, calculation. She stood gracefully, her posture perfect. You're choosing to believe them over me? Your wife? I'm choosing to believe the truth. The truth. Her laugh was bitter. The truth is, your mother is a burden you were too guilty to refuse. The truth is, you're never here, so I'm left managing everything. The truth is, I've held this family together while you traveled the country building your career. By abusing my mother, by maintaining order, by protecting Lily from confusion, by doing what needed to be done. Victoria's mask was cracking, revealing the cold machinery beneath. You have no idea how difficult she is, how draining, how— Get out. The words fell like stones into water. What? Get out of this house. Today. Now! Victoria's face transformed. Shock, then fury, then something desperate and frightening. She moved toward Michael, her hands reaching for him. You can't be serious. This is my home. Lily is my daughter. Lily will always be your daughter. But this marriage is over. Michael's voice was steady, though his hands shook. I've contacted an attorney. You'll hear from them tomorrow about custody arrangements and asset division. You're doing this based on lies from a confused old woman and a girl barely out of college? Victoria's voice rose, losing its cultivated smoothness. Michael, think about what you're doing. Your reputation, your career, divorce will complicate everything. My reputation. You held my mother's head underwater. You systematically abused her for months. You terrorized her into silence. His voice broke. My career is the least of my concerns right now. Victoria's expression shifted again, tears appearing with practiced ease. I was trying to help her. She's so fragile, and I got frustrated sometimes. Is that abuse? Or is that just being human? Don't. Michael's hand came up like a barrier. I've watched you perform for years. I'm done being your audience. What about Lily? You're going to tell our daughter that you're destroying our family because of some bruises and hurt feelings? I'm going to tell our daughter the truth, that people who love each other don't hurt each other, that kindness matters more than appearances, that she deserves better than what she's been witnessing. Rachel, watching from inside the house, saw Victoria's face contort with rage. The beautiful mask cracked completely, revealing something ugly beneath. You'll regret this, Victoria hissed. I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of son abandons his wife for his pathetic mother. I'll tell Lily stories about you that she'll never forget. I'll poison everything. Then I'll have evidence of that too. Michael's voice was tired now. Pack your things, Victoria. Martha will stay with you while you do. I want you gone in 2 hours. Victoria looked at him, really looked, and saw that he meant it. No negotiation, no compromise. The control she'd wielded so skillfully had evaporated. She went inside without another word, moving past Rachel with venomous silence. Martha followed her upstairs, a silent witness to the end. Michael sank onto the lounger Victoria had occupied, his head in his hands. Rachel approached carefully. You did the right thing, she said quietly. Did I? Or did I just blow up my family? Your family was already broken. You're just admitting it now. He looked up at her, this young woman who'd had the courage he'd lacked. Thank you for seeing what I couldn't, for protecting my mother when I wasn't. I only did what anyone should do. No, most people look away. You didn't. Inside, they could hear Victoria moving through the house, drawers opening, doors closing, the sounds of a life being dismantled. When she finally emerged, she had 2 suitcases and a face like carved ice. I want to see Lily before I go. They're not back yet. You can arrange visitation through the attorneys. You're going to keep my daughter from me? I'm going to protect my daughter from watching her mother hurt people she loves. Michael's voice was firm. When you're ready to be healthy, when you've gotten help, we can discuss custody. Until then, supervised visits only. Victoria's laugh was hollow, brittle. You think you're the hero in this story? You're just another weak man choosing comfort over commitment. Maybe, but I'm choosing my mother over my pride. That feels like a start. She left without saying goodbye, her car disappearing down the mountain road in a spray of gravel. The house seemed to exhale, walls settling, air clearing. Rachel found Michael still sitting by the pool, staring at the mountains. What happens now? She asked. Now I figure out how to apologize to my mother for not seeing, for not believing, for letting this happen. His voice cracked. How do you apologize for something like that? You start by meaning it, and then you spend every day proving you've changed. When Martha returned with Evelyn and Lily, the little girl ran straight to her father, sensing something had shifted. Where's Mommy? Mommy had to go away for a while, Michael said carefully. But she loves you very much. Lily's face crumpled with confusion. But before she could cry, Evelyn was there, kneeling beside her, pulling her close. It's okay, sweetheart. We're okay. That evening, Michael asked Evelyn to sit with him in his office. The sun was setting, painting the mountains gold and purple, and for the first time in months, the house felt quiet without being oppressive. I'm sorry, he said. Those words aren't enough, but they're all I have. I'm sorry I didn't see. I'm sorry I didn't believe you. I'm sorry I brought you here and then abandoned you to someone who hurt you. Evelyn was quiet for a long moment. You believed what you needed to believe. that your wife was good, that your family was whole, that your mother was just getting old. That's not an excuse. No, but it's human. She reached for his hand. I was angry with you, furious, hurt beyond measure. But sitting here now, I realize we were both victims of the same person. She manipulated you too, just differently. That doesn't absolve me. No, but maybe it gives us a place to start rebuilding. Michael squeezed her hand, and they sat together as darkness fell over Harper Farm, two people damaged by the same storm, beginning the slow work of repair. The weeks that followed were not easy. Healing never is. Evelyn moved out of the back bedroom into a room upstairs with windows facing the mountains. Martha helped her arrange it. Photographs from Oregon, books she'd taught from, a small desk where she could write. Rachel brought wildflowers from the meadow and placed them on the windowsill, their vibrant colors a stark contrast to the white lilies that had dominated the house before. Lily struggled with her mother's absence. She had nightmares, cried unexpectedly, asked questions no one knew how to answer. Michael took her to a child therapist in town who specialized in family transitions. Slowly, carefully, they helped her understand that sometimes adults made choices that hurt people, and that loving someone didn't mean accepting their harmful behavior. Mommy wasn't being kind, Lily said one evening, curled against Evelyn on the couch. Was she? No, sweetheart. She wasn't. Were you scared of her? Evelyn considered lying, softening the truth, but decided Lily deserved honesty. Yes, I was very scared. I was scared sometimes, too. Lily's voice was small. When she got quiet, that was the scariest. They held each other, sharing the weight of what they'd both endured. Michael threw himself into restoration, not just of relationships, but of the physical space that had witnessed so much pain. He started with the barn. Every morning before work, he'd spend 2 hours on the structure, replacing rotten boards, reinforcing the frame, painting the weathered siding. Rachel often joined him, handing him tools, holding boards steady, saying little but offering steady presence. Why the barn? She asked one Saturday as they worked side by side. Because it's broken but salvageable, Michael said, hammering a new support beam into place. Like us, like this family. If I can fix this, maybe I can believe we can fix the rest. The barn became a symbol. Its gradual transformation, a visible marker of invisible healing. Neighbors noticed, stopped by to help. Word had spread about Victoria's departure. Small towns kept few secrets, and while some whispered judgment, others offered quiet support. Edward Thompson was among the visitors. He'd taught history at the same high school where Evelyn had taught English, had retired the year before her fall. He arrived one afternoon with a book he thought she might enjoy, a collection of essays on education and resilience. I heard you were here, he said, his smile warm. Thought I'd check in on the finest English teacher Colorado ever produced. Evelyn found herself laughing, really laughing, for the first time in months. Oregon, actually. Colorado only got me in decline. Well, let's fix that. Edward started visiting weekly, bringing books, telling stories from the old days, reminding Evelyn of who she'd been before fear had diminished her. They'd sit in the garden Martha had revived, drinking tea, talking about literature and life. You're different than you were in Oregon, Edward observed during one visit. Quieter, but there's strength in that quiet now. Like you've walked through fire and come out tempered. I don't feel strong. Strength isn't feeling invincible. It's choosing to keep going even when you're broken. One evening, 6 weeks after Victoria's departure, Evelyn helped Lily with homework at the kitchen table, something Victoria had never allowed. They worked through spelling words, Lily's small hand carefully forming letters. Grandma, will you teach me like you taught your students? What do you want to learn? Everything. Lily's eyes were bright with possibility. Stories and poems and how to make words beautiful. So Evelyn started teaching again. Not formally, just small lessons woven into daily life. How to notice details, how to describe emotions, how to find magic in ordinary moments. Other children from town joined sometimes, Word spreading that Mrs. Harper was offering tutoring in her sunroom. Michael watched his mother come alive again, saw confidence returning to her movements, heard laughter that sounded genuine. The guilt he carried was heavy, but he bore it without complaint, knowing it was his to carry. "She's getting better," Rachel said one evening as they finished repainting the barn's exterior. "We all are, slowly." Michael stepped back, surveying their work. The barn stood straight now, its red paint fresh and bright. "You're staying, aren't you? Even though the crisis is over?" Rachel had received word that she'd passed her teaching exam, had job offers waiting. But she looked at the farm, at the family she'd helped save, at the community forming around this healing space, and knew her answer. "If you'll have me. We need you, not as help, as family." That night they gathered for dinner. Michael, Evelyn, Lily, Rachel, and Martha, who'd become less employee and more matriarch. They held hands around the table, and Michael spoke words he'd never said in Victoria's presence. "I'm grateful for this family, for second chances, for people brave enough to speak truth." Outside, the barn stood strong against the twilight sky, no longer leaning, no longer broken. A structure rebuilt, holding new possibilities within its restored frame. 3 months after Victoria's departure, Harper Farm hosted its first gathering, a late autumn lunch in the garden. Former colleagues of Evelyn's came from across the state, along with neighbors who'd watched the family's transformation with quiet approval. Children ran across the grass while adults talked over cider and Martha's apple pie. Edward Thompson stayed close to Evelyn, their easy companionship deepening into something neither had expected at this stage of life. Not romance, exactly, but connection. Two people who'd spent careers giving to others, finally receiving care themselves. "You're different than you were in June," he said, watching her laugh with a former student who'd become a teacher herself. "I'm more myself," Evelyn said. "Or maybe I'm becoming someone new. I'm not sure yet. Does it matter which?" "No, I suppose it doesn't." Lily moved between adults with growing confidence, her nightmares less frequent, her laughter coming easier. She still spoke to Victoria weekly through supervised video calls arranged by the court, but the distance had given them both space to exist without harm. Michael had made peace with shared custody. Victoria could be a mother to Lily without being destructive if proper boundaries existed. The divorce proceedings were civil, both parties motivated more by ending pain than inflicting it. Rachel had accepted a teaching position at the local elementary school, starting in January. She'd moved into a small cottage on the Harper property that Michael had renovated, close enough to remain part of the family, separate enough to build her own life. "You saved us," Michael had told her once. "No, I just refused to look away." "You saved yourselves." As the afternoon waned and guests began leaving, Evelyn found herself alone in the garden, studying the barn. It stood straight and strong, its fresh paint glowing in the slanted light. Michael had mounted a small plaque near the door. "Restored with love, October 2025. She thought of her orchids in Oregon, the ones she'd left behind, probably dead now from neglect. Those flowers had required specific conditions, careful tending, perfect circumstances to bloom. She'd loved them for their fragility, their dependence on her expertise, but she wasn't an orchid anymore. She was the barn, weathered, tested, broken, and rebuilt. Stronger for having survived, valuable not despite her damage, but because of what that damage had taught her about resilience. "Mom," Michael approached, Lily holding his hand. "We want to show you something." They led her to the barn's loft, now transformed into a reading space. Bookshelves lined the walls, filled with volumes from Evelyn's teaching career that Michael had retrieved from storage. A comfortable chair sat by the window, a reading lamp beside it, and a small sign above the door. "Evelyn's Library. For your students," Michael said. "The ones you're already teaching and any others who want to come. Your space, your rules." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "The good kind, the healing kind. It's perfect." "Not perfect," Michael corrected gently. "But ours. Real and honest and ours." That evening, after everyone had left, the five of them sat around the kitchen table playing cards, a tradition Martha had instituted. Lily's giggles punctuated the quiet conversation. Rachel's gentle teasing made Michael smile, and Martha's presence anchored them all. "I'm glad you came here," Lily said suddenly, looking at Evelyn. "Even though it was scary for a while." "I'm glad you stayed." "Me too, sweetheart." Later, alone in her room, Evelyn stood at the window, looking at the barn. Her barn now, in a sense. A place where broken things were given purpose again, where endings became beginnings. She thought of Victoria sometimes, wondered if the woman ever reflected on what she'd done, if she felt remorse or simply resentment. But those thoughts came less frequently now, carrying less weight. Forgiveness, Evelyn had learned, wasn't about absolving someone of their sins. It was about refusing to let those sins continue shaping your life. Victoria had hurt her profoundly, but Victoria no longer defined her. The barn light clicked on. Michael, probably organizing tools for tomorrow's work. The structure glowed warm against the dark mountains, a beacon of persistence and possibility. Evelyn smiled, turned from the window, and picked up the book Edward had brought her, a collection of poetry she'd teach from tomorrow, when 3 children from town arrived for their weekly lesson. She was 73 years old, a teacher, a grandmother, a survivor, a woman who'd walked through darkness and chosen every single day to keep walking toward light. Outside, autumn stars emerged over Harper Farm, their ancient light falling on new ground, old sorrows, and the quiet, stubborn miracle of people choosing again and again to rebuild what had been broken. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. Tomorrow always did. But tonight, in this house that had once been a prison and was now a home, Evelyn Harper was exactly where she belonged. Strong, whole, free.